Okay.
Okay.
But how are you? Congrats, first of all.
Thank
You're
you.
a dad.
Yeah. I still can't believe it. Every morning I wake up to a meh, and then I'm like, oh yeah, there's still a baby here. One. All right, ladies and gents, welcome to another episode of the Courage Diaries. This is the new season that you're watching, and I'm your host, Shubhpreet. And today, I've got a real special treat for you guys out there. I've got a lovely lady who has her own amazing podcast. It's called the Wisdom Podcast, which we'll talk about a little bit later. She's magnificent of animals, speaks from the heart, and has some really lovely and beautiful and heart-centered content just for you. Her name is Shubh, and I'm going to pass the mic over to you. How are you doing today?
Everything's going well.
Nice. And what are you up to these days?
Well, I think that the main thing is just trying to find ways to stay entertained. I think a lot of times during these times, everybody's indoors a lot. So I think I've just been trying to, find a new outlet to do new things and well, I think you just mentioned it at the beginning. So one of the first new things that I've done is just the podcast. And to be very honest, I wanted to do the podcast quite some time ago. I think almost about a year, maybe more than that. I dabble in a lot of content, as part of my professional life and things like that anyway. And I think one of the beauty about content is you get to tell stories, sometimes the same story, but in different ways. And I just felt like I had a lot of things to share because I do enjoy writing. I enjoy a whole bunch of, poetry and anything related to self-development in the spiritual and scientific aspect. So that's literally what Little Wisdom, the podcast, is about, and bringing all of that together in a really small way to inspire confidence in people. And I think that's one of the main things that I've been up to, in addition to trying to get healthy and not sit on the couch all day and watch Netflix. I think that's about it.
There's something you said over there that really caught my attention, which was inspiring confidence in other people. So if I were to, I guess, flip it, right? I'm always curious because as much as I like to say confidence just falls from the sky, it's natural, right? I think for a lot of us, it's something that's built upon. My question would be, how did you build confidence in yourself?
My gosh, honestly, I agree with what you said, first of all. It's not something I think that falls from the sky. To be very honest, I think a lot of times we think confidence is something that's for other people. It's like there is a type and they are the ones who are gifted with confidence. But to be honest, I think it's just something that you have to learn how to develop. When you exercise, you are trying to work out certain muscle groups or anything like that. It's a habit. I think confidence is not a one-time thing. It develops over time. And even when you kind of arrive at that stage, I think you can still lose it. That has happened to me. You think everything's going great because you get comfortable, everything's familiar, and then you're like, oh, I can do this. This is awesome. It's great. And then suddenly, just the way life is, Murphy's Law coming along, things can happen, and then you lose confidence. And, it's not just one core thing that's, there across all aspects of your life. You can be super confident in, let's say, your professional life, but in your personal life, maybe you're not. So I think it's a bit of it's something that you have to learn. People say confidence is an attitude, it's a personality thing. It's really not. I think it's a habit. You have to teach it to yourself, and you have to teach it to yourself, differently through different parts of your life. And I think for me, it's really just been trying to push myself out of my comfort zone. And courage plays a huge role in that, because a lot of times when you're not feeling confident is when you need to practice it. There's a lot of things like fake it till you make it and stuff. I don't know how much I believe in that, because I think if you're faking it, people will smell it from like you know, the other country. But I think you really have to practice. And, you know, for me, it was really just putting myself in situations where I knew I was uncomfortable, because I actually am a little introverted. I'm great at talking to people and being friendly and all of that, but I'm quite shy otherwise. And, you know, it takes a bit of an effort. So I think once it becomes almost like muscle memory to you, that's one of the ways to build confidence. You really have to push yourself out in little portions, you know, time and time again. And I think one of the biggest ways that I have tried to become more confident, you know, I'm still trying every day, is because I'm also afraid of what happens if I'm not. I think that has been the biggest driver for me. Not so much, yeah, it's great to feel confident and all of that. The good stuff is great, obviously. But I think it's what I have lost out in a lot of parts of my life from not being confident, you know, from just taking the back seat. And then you regret it later, you know. So it turns into the cycle, oh, I wish I had the confidence to just go up and say that. Or I wish, you know, when I knew I was right, that I stood up for myself or stood up for that person, or, you know, whatever it is, or even wanting more, confident enough to say that, no, this is what I deserve. And I think that has been the main driving force, at least in my case, because I hate that feeling, you know, to lose out something that you know you deserve or that you know you want, and there's nothing wrong in wanting it. So I don't like experiencing that because I've had enough of that. So that's why I try to push myself out, because we know what happens when you don't. So I was like, let's see what happens when I do.
Could you give an
Yeah,
example of when that's happened?
sure. Let me give one that's not going to land me in trouble. Let me think of something.
We could change the names.
We could change the names, but when they see the story, they'll be like, "Oh, she's talking about me." Okay, let me give you a, you know, professional example, perhaps. Okay, this is a really small one, and I think people will identify with this. There have been so many times in meetings in some of my previous organizations when I've had an idea, or let's say we have a discussion, something's going on, and, you know, people are looking for a solution, or they're like, you know, what do we do? I think many people will identify with. It's not a big one, but I think it happens a lot. And it was basically in some of the meetings that I've been in some of my previous organizations, or very early on in my career. I would want to say something, but I wouldn't say it. And even though I knew that, you know, maybe this is of value. And a lot of times it's like I said, I'm very analytical in nature. I want to kind of analyze for throwing out something there, because I value people's time. And, you know, I think I should assess. And if it's not adding value to that conversation, I'll keep my mouth shut. It's not the same thing with my friends, though. I talk like nobody. So yeah, I think, and just that holding back, I wouldn't say it. You know, even though I knew maybe this was good, maybe this is what they're looking for, and then someone else will say it, and then I walk away feeling like, why the hell did I do that to myself? You know, or why did I not speak up? And, you know, little things like that do affect your confidence. And a lot of times, if it's in a meeting where there's a lot of senior people, and you're one of the, you know, underdogs in many ways, I think that in my case has been a lot of hesitation to speak up and think that maybe what I want to add is not of as much value. And over time, I have seen how that, you know, puts you in a kind of certain kind of a box in people's minds. Like they form a perception of you, and they think that that's your capability, or that is what you're capable of. But inside, you know, you're not, you know. And then I had to kind of realize that if I don't open my mouth and say what I want to say, or don't contribute to that idea, or even if it's something radical and I say, hey, why don't we try this? And I hesitate to say it because I don't want to rock the boat, then they're going to have a perception of me because they cannot see what's on the inside. Their, you know, experience of me is only what they see in that short moment. So I also cannot blame them. So it was then that you kind of realize that, hey, if you don't move your butt, and push yourself, it's life is just gonna, kind of go you by and go you by.
Go by.
And you're just gonna be left there thinking, oh, I wanted to try that.
Mm.
So yeah, I think that's one of the times or few times when you notice that your confidence or lack of it will hold you back.
Oh, that really hits home. I think I was in a very, very similar phase when I then decided like enough is enough. Like I have to step out of my comfort zone and do something. Otherwise, if I'm my only audience, then that's just not good enough for me. I want to be seen and heard. And if that's what I want, then I have to go out and make things happen. Otherwise, I could wait for it to fall out of the sky, but chances of that are very unlikely. And I'm going to be waiting a long time, and I'm not patient either, right?
Yeah.
Fair enough. Hey, I wanted to ask you, if there's someone out there who's like in a similar situation as you, right? They really want to step out of the comfort zone. They want to be confident. They want to speak up, but they have no idea where to start. What advice would you give them?
Where to start? I'll give you two pieces of advice. One was actually given to me by someone very dear to me, who you also happen to know, my best friend, who's also your cousin. So Deepa gave me this advice, and I don't know where she got it from, or if it's from her own thing, but this really was super useful to me. So this is the first piece. Is I was telling her that how sometimes in school, or was it in university, I think around that phase, maybe it was meetings, same situation, similar situations, and that I was hesitating to speak up, and that I will just kind of leave it in, and then I walk away feeling, crap, I should have said that, and that was a great idea. She told me that the next time you feel you want to say something, count backwards in your head. And there's a science behind this. I've actually just found out, recently, separately, that there's actually a science thing behind this. So she said, count backwards in your head. Just go like 3, 2, 1, and then just say it. Like, don't give yourself time to be like, oh, should I? Just go 3, 2, 1, and then open your mouth and just say it. So I tried it. I actually tried it a couple of times, saying that the science behind counting backwards is that it disrupts the negative flow of thoughts in your brain. And it doesn't work if you say 1, 2, 3. That's something that I've realized and I did my research on. You can say 1, 2, 3 because your brain's kind of learned almost subconsciously to count that way. But when you do that backwards, it disrupts the flow of whatever negative strain that you're having, so that it gives you clarity to just act. So that's the first tip. And this works really well with many things like anxiety, things like any kind of fear, fear of flight and things like that. There's other steps to that as well. But even in anxiety, if someone's, let's say, feeling anxious and you're walking around, you just go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, or 3, 2, 1, and then just do something else. So that's tip number 1: is count backwards and just open your mouth and just go for it.
I like it. I just started doing it in my head, and I can feel, interesting. It really, you kind of have to pay attention to it. Yeah.
The second tip is to create situations whereby you are in some kind of discomfort, but not pain, and it doesn't threaten your safety in any way, and to do a little bit of that every day. So this could be things like taking a cold shower if you're not used to cold showers. James Bond takes cold showers, by the way. It's great. That's what they say, it's good for health. So if you're not used to that, take a cold shower, if it's medically recommended, of course. Or, if you're shy, like for me, when I was learning English, when I moved here, it was a bit of a disaster. But being shy, then, maybe try and talk to other people, maybe the people behind the counter when you are, ordering a sandwich or something, or even learning a new language. So basically find little challenges that you can do every day, because that will push you out of your comfort zone gently, and also give you that kind of confidence boost to realize that, hey, I'm doing new things, and it will start working that muscle. So count backwards and open your mouth, and find little challenges every day that cause you discomfort, but not pain.
I have to say that I agree with exactly what you're saying. A lot of them, for me, I was very used to speaking to a lot of people. And then I moved to Germany where I didn't speak the language, and where I live in a village, they
Yeah.
don't speak English. So it was really uncomfortable. And I really felt myself going back into the hole, becoming really shy and just not knowing what to say because I couldn't really communicate. And and then I started learning bits of
Yeah.
German, and I was still very shy because my German sounds terrible. I feel like I brutalized the language. But then I was like, you know what? Let's screw it, right? You got to start somewhere and sometime. So I just started practicing it, mixing it with English. I call it Deutschlich sometimes, and just having random conversations with
Oh
strangers
my
or
God.
whatever. And if it's completely broken, doesn't matter. And it helped. And like the
Yeah.
more I practiced, the better I felt, the more I felt like myself, and the more I wanted to speak more. And sometimes, my German is so bad that people who don't speak English suddenly start speaking English, which is also great. So I end up in a conversation and make some new friends. So I have to say, it's opening your mouth really does wonders. You never know where it's going to take you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's for sure.
yeah.
For sure.
Cool. So, Shubs, I think we are coming about to the time. So I just have a last few questions, which is, how would you, if you showed up at a party and you just met someone and they said, hey, what are you up to? Like, who are you? How would you describe yourself?
Oh my God. Normally I just say I'm Wonder Woman. That's literally that's literally what I say sometimes. Because like, oh my God, this whole who are you? What do you do? And I'm like, so boring. And
Yeah,
like I said,
yeah,
I don't know if I'm introverted or an ambivert. So these kind of conversations exhaust me more than anything else.
nice.
Um, yeah. So if I said that to somebody once, they asked me, "Hey, so what's your name?" And I said, "Oh, just call me Wonder Woman."
Yeah, nice. I'm going to use that.
So yeah, do it. There's this. I mean, there's a Justice League. Don't take Wonder Woman, okay? I'm taking that. Take someone else, Chirag. There's a whole bunch you can pick from. But yeah, normally I just say that, and then I'll say something else like I eat too much ice cream and I'm weird or something. I don't know. But
Nice.
it depends also actually who the person is.
Mm,
If it's someone who I know who's like I don't know, someone senior, I'm not going to say that. Like some auntie or uncle or someone's grandparents, not recommended. Then I'll be a bit more polite. I'll just, say, my name's Shubh and nice to meet you. That's it.
nice.
But yeah, so
Nice.
so gauge your audience. Get a feel of the room first.
Mm, fair enough. Nice. And I've just got one last question I wanted to ask you. Actually, two, because I'm going to be a little bit selfish,
Go
right?
on. I
So,
have time.
so I just recently became a parent, and I've had this question that I like asking people because I'm really curious about what they have to say. Um, I'm going to try to frame it as best as I can, and
Sure.
hopefully it makes sense. Which is, what do you think is the one? What do you think is one lesson that you learned from your parents that's really kind of shaped who you are?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, being a parent is no easy thing.
Mm,
I say that like I have kids. I don't, but
mm,
I like kids and I would love to have a big family one day. But I think before I go into the lessons, I think I just want to say that one of the most difficult things about being a parent is getting your child to realize that you're human.
mm,
And I think this is something that I've only learned over time. Because, I think sometimes as kids or especially in your teen years, like, oh man, why can't you just do this? Or you have expectations, naturally you have expectations as a human being from everything and everybody. And of course you have them from your parents as well. And sometimes growing up, actually for me, we moved countries. So, your upbringing is very different and you see different examples of parenting. And I think growing up, sometimes you feel like, oh, this would have been better, or maybe that would have been better, and things like that. But you get to a stage where you realize that, fine, you can have all those expectations, but your parents are human, and as a parent, they did whatever they thought was right or what was in their capacity or consciousness at that point in time. And if it was not perfect, you can't really blame or hold them to it for the rest of your life, because then you're just holding yourself prisoner of that. So I think that's going to be one of the most difficult things to get your kids to realize. But that's even not your job to do. They'll just have to realize that at some point. So it's a very thankless job, a gift rather, I think, in that manner. So yeah, I think having said that, that's one of the things that I've realized over time, that nobody's parents are perfect. And now that I'm a full-fledged adult, I think, I hope somewhere, you kind of begin to realize a little more about that life is, I always say life's not always black and white, it can be gray. And then you kind of understand that, okay, sometimes you have to let things go. Having said that, I think can I share two lessons? Like one from my
Absolutely.
mom, one from my dad. So I think from my mom, oh my gosh, this is like her ability to love. Like seriously, it sounds cliched and everyone says my mom loves but I have not met a woman to date in person, Mother Teresa and these people aside, but in person, who has the capacity to love the way I think my mother does. Not just with me, not just with her family and her sisters and brothers and, grandchild now with my brother, but even with my own friends or just in general, that love that she has for just everyone around her who is nice to her. She's so gullible that way. And sometimes I feel like I need to protect her from this horrendous world sometimes. And I think that gives her a lot of strength. And this is not something that she has taught me. She didn't sit me down every week and say, hey, you got to love people, or this is how you love. This is a cheat sheet for that. It's what I saw. And I think that compassion and that love that she has given her so much strength in character and in just so many, ways in her life, that she can sleep at night with a clear conscience. Mm. And I think that is the most powerful thing to have, especially in today's world. And also, I think it gives her so much strength that you can't shake her. When she knows she's right, hell can break loose, but you cannot shake that woman. And it's true. I think when you, love with all your heart, and, I think the truth supports you in that, it really gives you a different kind of strength that, people who are very smart here, but not here, may lack actually that kind of strength. So that's from my mom, the ability to love. I think even if I can get a fraction of that, I'd be happy. And I think from my dad, well, many things, integrity, all the dad stuff of that alpha generation, like he's very alpha. So hard work, integrity, he's never compromised on his principles. I really respect him for that. And this is things that I've heard from other people, like his colleagues or ex-colleagues and things, that he's never taken the easy way out. He's kind of showed that it takes grit and blood and sweat to put things together, the whole old school values. He's never compromised on his integrity in anything, and, never taken the easy way out for things, even though he knew that the right way will be more difficult. He's never backed down from that. And I admire him for that today. And I think that's somewhere in me, I hope. And I think to some degree, he's also kind of, I don't think he realizes he's done this, but he's kind of given me this wild imagination to dream. Because I remember as a kid, now I remember this. At that point, I was just like eating ice cream, like, oh, okay, Dad. But he used to tell me, he used to tell both my brother and I that, in life, when you want something, you need to have that burning desire within you. Those are the exact words. You need to have the burning desire within you. And at that point, I was like, yeah, burning desire, yeah. You don't know what that means. It's like I don't know, 8, 9-year-old. But I think he planted the seed because of that, I have never, in terms of my ambition and ambition or professional life, I have never thought that because I'm a woman, I can't get to a certain ranking. If at all, if any of that has ever, struck me, it's been because of external factors or, not having the right support system around you or things. But he has never, professionally or anything like that made me feel that I cannot rule the world, and he's like, as long as you have that burning desire, just because you're a woman, he used to tell me, just because you're a girl or you're a woman doesn't mean you don't have that, fire to want something. And you should have that in you if you want it. So yeah, I think those are the two things that I've learned. I just rambled. I'm sorry. I feel like
No,
I
but
said too much.
I'm speechless. I'm like, wow, I wish I could meet your dad and take some notes from him. It's really,
I'm telling you, if you say
yeah,
that, you better be careful what you wish
yeah,
for because he will lecture.
yeah. I don't mind. I used to not
Yeah.
appreciate a lot of it as a kid, but I think growing up, you start appreciating people who take the time to tell you something and who also live it. It's not common, and I like what you said that you heard most of these things from not from him, but from other people, and they came back to
Yes.
you. It's that wow integrity. It's something that I've been kind of reading a lot more about, and it's fascinating.
Yeah.
It's really wow. It's deep.
Can I just give you one little tip
Please.
as like for a parent? I, like I said, I can just say this because like, oh yeah, I know parenting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I read this once is that your kids will not so much pay attention to what you say, but
Mm,
what you do. So if there's anything you want them to learn, it's what they will learn by watching.
mm,
And that can feel like a tremendous amount of pressure because you're like, am I being watched? It's like there's like a secret service or something. But no, I think they will watch your mistakes as well, and it's good to make those mistakes. I think it's I think a lot of times parents or even my friends who are parents, sometimes they feel that you have to be perfect. You can't make mistakes, you can't fail, but it's important for your kids to see you fail so that they can see how you come back from that
mm.
because they will be watching just how you live your life so that they have an example how to live theirs. So I would say, of course, tell your kids and your daughter, that you love her and you support her and, all of that. She will, of course, listen to it, even when you think she's not. This is so important. But more importantly, it's, how you act on
Yeah.
those words. Even when she's a teenager and you're like telling her, Lucy, don't, da, 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 and she's rolling her eyes at you, she's listening. It's going
Mm-hmm.
in there somewhere. So yeah, I would say like say those things. Of course, I think saying is equally important, but it's also important that they see it, that she sees it. And I think when she does, she will she will treasure it for the rest of her life. Yeah.
Hmm. Wow. I'm
For you.
yeah, I think I need a couple of moments. It's
We're
really
gonna go
good.
to a commercial break, you guys.
Yeah.
Chirag is gonna be back with some tissues.
No, it doesn't go that. Oh, wow. But I think honestly, I think this is the best place to pause this interview, and maybe one day we can do a second part because there's so many more questions I'd love to ask, right? But wow, I think this is a lot more than what I expected. So wow.
I hope in a good way. It's not like,
In
oh
a
crap, she just
very,
like,
very good way. Yeah. Yeah. But it
okay.
helps. Sometimes it's good not to filter it. So,
Yeah.
um, the last question is
Yes.
if anybody wants to reach you, what would be the best way to get to know more about what you do or to find you?
I think for now, the best way would be to, sign up at the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So my podcast is called Little Wisdom. Little because, wisdom on its own is like, oh my gosh, heavy. And I don't have all the wisdom at all, like nowhere near that. So Little Wisdom, the whole idea behind the podcast, I think the sentiment behind it was really to share these kind of reflections and conversations like we've just had with some scientific tips so that there's things that they can do which they know that it's not just fluffy advice but it's backed by science, and it's basically bringing those reflections and tips from science together to just kind of strengthen our wisdom and also our self-awareness. So that's what I'm really focusing on nowadays. I mean, not self-awareness, but the podcast. It's a passion project, and it's a lot of stuff that I've written and thought about in my life. And some of it is actually my personal writings over the years. And I think that's the best place for anyone to come and find me. We have an Instagram channel. It's just Little Wisdom Podcast. We have a website, littlewisdompodcast.com. And yeah, I think that's the best way. We have a newsletter, but I'm not going to go into all of that. Just go to the website and they can get in touch there, and hopefully also find some inspiration through the podcast.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Fantastic, guys. Thank you very much for coming on the show, Shubhpreet. I really appreciate it. And ladies and gents, thank you very much for watching, and stay tuned for another episode of the Courage Podcast. I'm Shubh Puri, and this is Shubhpreet, and we say peace out, guys.